I won't promise to post every class online because, like a good manager, I realize that if I just post everything online, then there's little incentive to come to class, right? And I think there's a high correlation between good grades and people who show up, right? I mean, just showing up is a huge thing, right? In class is better because of it. So I know someone shouted out an opinion a second ago about the article, but does someone want to speak to it for a minute or so, or 30 seconds? Tell me what they thought. And it's totally fine to take a side, right? Because to be frank with you, it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm on both sides," right? Like that's like not having an opinion. Does anyone want to volunteer to talk and express an opinion? Yeah, AJ, I see your hands up.
I would say she should leave the company. I would leave the board if I were her. The reason being is that no good is really going to come out of this situation after this point. What I responded to was if she stays on the board and continues, and her only option is to kind of tone it down and back off Sid, then there's going to be growing resentment. Every meeting she's going to be in, she's going to know that he could do a lot more and he's not. And the fact that she can't say anything about it is going to start becoming pretty frustrating. And just like JD was the other guy, just like how he pointed out, she's very educated. She has a tremendous experience and insight in how things should be. And that if it wasn't for a majority of the company voting against him, he would be on her side. So I find it that it's not difficult for her to leave and find a place somewhere else where her opinion is valued, her insight is taken into account, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so she could be. What you're saying is like she could even be in the right, but sometimes even when you're right, it might not. It still might not work out for you, right? Is that what you were trying to say? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that she might find a way better situation somewhere else.
Great.
I think. I'm sorry.
And Kelsey, feel free to show your camera. I do encourage people, at least while they're talking, to show their camera because it makes for a more personal experience. Thanks, Kelsey. I appreciate it.
I've never used Teams before, so I wasn't even sure if my camera was on or not.
Oh, all right. No, it works. It's great.
Cool. Yeah, I also agree. I think she should leave because I've just had experience working in places before that just aren't a good fit. And if you go to work every single day and even if you are doing the right thing and you're just constantly being told you're not, or just getting pushback, I don't think it's worth it to be in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, right? It can be a real challenge. I mean, and sometimes being right, like the cost of being right sometimes can be like pretty high in terms of like office politics and stuff like that. And that's not something that's like an emotional aspect to management, but that doesn't mean we can ignore it because it's just the reality of life, right? So, we've all felt experiences like that, being right and then like being called into question when you're right, right? Mm-hmm. Great. Hey, thank you for the contribution, AJ and Kelsey. I really appreciate it. And then what about the other side, or even Kelsey, to start with you and then ping it off to someone else? I mean, can you take the other side of this too? I mean,
Professor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, my name's Li Xiang.
Yeah.
So I have a little different opinion.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Here is what I'm thinking is that in this company, I think most company have the same issues like this. I love this story for sure because I think it is exactly describing the current, most company has these issues, I believe, because standing one side or standing to another side is typically in the company, political things inside, especially the big company. So if what I'm thinking is that I don't blame the board's member or even the CFO. I think this is kind of culture inside. That means it all depends the leaders. The leader, I mean the new CEO JP, the younger one, and the young CEO he's supposed to make a correct direction. So what does he expect the company go which way? Follow his father's way, entrepreneur, leadership, only one person, control everything, and to representative the old style, like a private company, smaller one, like the family company, the style. It's one way. Another way is if he want to adopt to the new, like modern management, he's supposed to do the right thing. And now Sarah, like the fresh air to the company. If he want to go the new way, he's supposed to keep Sarah and protect her. It's not Sarah's decision to leave or not leave. It is the CFO, his decision to let her leave or let her out. It's my opinion. Do not shut up her mouth. No, it's no way.
Yeah, I mean, part of this too is, you think about it from the other side, take gender out of it, right, for a second. And you've been at this company for 20 years and you think you're the best because you've been there forever and you know your stuff. And then some new person comes in, tries to tell you what to do. Like, so it's you take gender out of it and it's easy you could almost even take gender out of it and make it an age thing, right? Like, we're all men and women more likely to run into this or just as likely to run into it in regards to like an age difference more than just even like gender, right? So
right.
This is something that can like permeate across the board. I mean, it's something, guys, I'm 39 and I still face issues like this, right? Where I feel like, relative to you guys, you might be like old man Mike, but, relative to some people I work with, they're like baby Mike, right? So, it's all perspective and it has to do with the culture of an organization. One thing I've noticed inside my world of like investments and finance is that brain power matters more on like the corporate or institutional side. And I would say almost like looks and perceived appearance matter more on the retail private side. And I don't mean like looks like you're attractive, you're ugly. I mean like, do you look like someone who manages money, right? And I mean, that sounds like kind of silly, but it matters. Like when you talk about like culture and how organizations are structured, like if I were, do I typically wear jeans to a meeting with a new client? Probably not, right? I'm probably going to wear like slacks, right? I want to look like someone who does this role. So being different, can also be challenging, right? And what I mean by being different, the woman in the story was being different. She was kind of coming outside the norm with new suggestions, and there's always a risk in doing this. This is why you'll see some companies, you'll be like, I can't believe no one spoke up about like XYZ issue. Some organizations, they're set up where you're like almost explicitly incentivized, not to speak up, not to rock the boat, not to make change, yada, 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 right? So, these are real management issues. Who else wants to speak to this? I know other people might have opinions, and I do want to hear from people.
Hey, Professor. This is Amin. I'm currently working on fixing my camera. I don't know what's going on, but can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
So my opinion on the whole thing, as in terms of Sarah's perspective, or I guess anyone who's really like, if we're being asked to put in someone's shoes, I think it really depends on what their real priorities and objectives are. And what I mean by that is if the priority and the objective is, for example, the company making more money, in terms of a pure business perspective, I think that it really needs to come down to management actually basically running the numbers, I should say, and taking both sides into account and seeing which one is going to actually produce more profit. But in Sarah's perspective, I think if her priority, for example, and I think this is something that I don't think has been mentioned yet, if her priority, let's say this is her only job at the moment, or she has a family to feed, or she's low on cash, maybe just leaving isn't that simple of a decision. And maybe biting her tongue is the right choice for her at the moment. In terms of if that is her priority at the time. If she has no other option but this job at the moment, then I think that's also an option to be looked at and talked about?
No, 100%, right? Like reality gets in the way. It's like you might be really unhappy, you might hate your boss, but you need the money, you don't have another opportunity lined up. So what are you going to do, right? I mean, then it begs the question of like, well, why cause so much noise? Maybe it's personality issue, right? Maybe you can't get out of your own way. Maybe she's doing the right thing and they just don't want to listen. We've all been in situations like that, right? Someone asks for advice, they're bringing you on the board. A board job is like you're basically being paid for your thoughts, which like how cool is that? Well, they're going to give you some like large sum of money typically if you're on a public board to like just to hear your thoughts. So, one sense is like, well, what are they paying me for if they don't want to hear my thoughts? The other side, you could be a little bit more pessimistic about life and say, well, if they don't want to hear my thoughts, then I'll just like shut up and collect the money.
100%.
And that's how you create a culture where like one person basically sucks the oxygen out of the room, dominates the conversation, and kind of everyone just like nods their head and agrees. I mean, and that it's like the luck of a dictator, right? Like you can get lucky and have like a really super smart, awesome dictator, right? And if you're the founder of the company, if I was founding a company, I'd want smart people on the board, but I wouldn't want to put anyone on the board who is going to like explicitly disagree with me. Because guess what? It's my company. I founded it. I put you on the board. I want your opinion, but like that's it. I just want your opinion. So it depends on the culture, right? Some people get these board memberships as like clout, right? Like it's like a funny LinkedIn flex to be on like a board, right? So you sound important and intelligent, right? So, what are her goals or important questions to ask? So, great. What about anyone else?
Me. My name's Jack IQ. So I actually agree with you said that is the culture. So I actually have that experience as well. So I'm not like that higher level employee, but for Shara, so I think she has to stay on the board until she has more experience than left that company, then she can find a better job. It's not like just left like right at this situation. So for JP, I would say he's the stupid guy because he said that is without ship he cannot run the company in this world. Nobody and without anyone we can move forward honestly. So sometimes when I was the head cash, I just feel like okay, I can handle the teller line, I can do everything. So but without me they still can run the branch very well. It's not because of me, it's because of the culture right there. So I think she has to adjust herself a little bit, try to team up with them to see how she can learn something from them, and then left, and then she probably take a good lessons on that board. It's not like just less.
Yeah, AJ, those are great comments. AJ, I see every hand up. Give me 1 second. I just want to make a comment. And it's almost like some of this is like managing your boss, right? When you're an employee, you're also managing your boss in some ways too. And I see Kelsey, I think, hopefully laughing at this conversation, right?
Oh yeah, I'm laughing because my last job was at Dana-Farber, so a lot of my job was managing doctors, and it is incredibly challenging, and it's definitely a skill set that's worth learning because once I learned that, it made my day so much easier and made us all like more productive. Anyway, I was laughing. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and what I can relate that in my work is like, one of these investment strategies I work on, there's like a head guy and he's older and he kind of has the most say. And I know, I have my opinion on what the best investment is. But if I think it's the best and I don't get him to buy it, then it doesn't matter. So what I look for instead is the best investment that I think he'll actually execute and buy on, right? Because if I recommend stuff and he doesn't listen, that's like a 0 for everybody. So, that's my way of kind of like working around it. So I'm not saying he gets like my second best ideas, right? I'll always try to run the best ideas by him. But if I know like a stock, he has a bias to a stock looking a certain way and I like it, well, that's the one I'm going to present because I know he'll buy it, right? And that's like, an effort in me trying to manage my manager, right? And that's also why I'm hesitant to post these classes to YouTube because I'm talking about my coworkers. Um, but I mean, this is like reality of work, right, guys? I mean, these are the challenges and conflicts. Do you bite your tongue or do you say something? Is it worth it? Like, and our ego will always be like, yeah, of course it's worth it. But like in reality for your career, it's like, in life, sometimes you're better off biting your tongue. And I know, AJ, I want to get back to you because I saw you did have your hand up.
No, I just want to address. I know a lot of folks have like introduced the fact that this might be her only job and that might influence how they answer the question. But in one of the meetings, Bill explicitly announced how everybody there is an expert in their own field, in their own business. They're the leader of their business. So each of them, I would go under the assumption that, I mean, he didn't finish off the list, but that they all have some other kind of job that, they're either the president, CEO, or executive somewhere else, and still on the board for that reason. And also the other thing is it is pretty interesting because in my position, I kind of fell into the same problem where my boss is getting a little older, health issues and things like that. And there have been times where I've been tasked with actually giving directions to her, and having her assist me on projects and things like that. And that's always been kind of an awkward situation to be put in because you're kind of telling your boss like, hey, can you, do this and do that and file this away for me and take care of this. And but it comes with the territory. And fortunately, I work at a company where speaking up is promoted, and they do want you to voice your opinion if you're unhappy about something. Not all things can be settled or resolved in the way you want it, but they'll at least try to make some kind of accommodation towards it. And I've always been encouraged at my job to speak up if I have issues. And I did have a kind of some friction at first because she's been doing this job for so long, and here I come, the new guy, and I'm doing things more quick, more efficient, more effective. And, to me, it looks like a good thing. Like you have somebody on your team who's doing a really good job and taking care of things, but then some other people see it more as a territory problem and kind of a challenge to your position.
One more thing I'll mention in regards to this. So, one aspect of my business is that I can technically sell like a 401k plan to a company. And, the way we price our 401k plans is like pretty inexpensive. And 401k plans in general can be very expensive. It's something like your human resources benefits person like sets up and then like ignores for the next 10 years. So my brother-in-law got a new job as like the head HR person at a grocery store, a chain of grocery stores. And that was in his wheelhouse. Like that's what he would manage. And, I took a look online. I was able to find out like what they were paying, and they were getting like totally hosed. They were paying, all the stuff in my world is like tiny percentages. So if you're paying like 0.8%, it sounds really small. But if like you could get 0.2%, all of a sudden 0.8 is like, spending 150 grand versus $500,000. And that was basically the equation. And I was like, dude, I can say, not only like, is it good for me that I can work with you? I was like, but it's good for you too, because like, it's going to be stupid easy to save your company like a ton of money. You're going to look like a hero. And he's like, yeah, but like the boss's buddy is actually the one who really manages that. And I'm afraid if I said I can get a 75% discount, I'm going to make him look really bad and stupid. And I don't want to make like one of my new coworkers, even if they're bad at their job, make them look bad at their job, because that's a political risk if they're like liked better, right? Which is a good segue to the article we're going to have due next week, which is Two Tough Choices. And it's basically like you have two crappy employees. You can only fire one. And the worst employee is more politically connected inside the company than the one who's a little better. And you have to like say, who do I fire effectively? Right? So another one that's like interesting, potential for any answer, like, is it worth playing office politics? And sometimes the answer is like, yeah, because I want, You know, I want to be liked. I want to be part of like the cool group at work, right? And the other part is like, well, what's the right thing to do? And it's easy on paper to like do the right thing, right? But in reality, it's like you have to consider the other factors, right, that might be involved. So, guys, I'm just going to get a quick drink of water, refill my cup, and then we're going to go to the business articles or management articles that you guys had, and then we'll do the PowerPoint slides. So just give me 1 second, and I'll be right back.
Hey, Karina, didn't we have class together?
Yeah, we had intro to marketing, wasn't it?
That's what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
With the crazy chick.
Oh yeah, Anna. Have you ever seen her after that?
No. Thank God, she was crazy.
Yeah, she was.
Oh my God. She tried to join my group.
I know. I was like, oh no, AJ.
Like, no, we're already full. We're good.
She's someone else's problem now.
Oh, yeah.
Is this your first time having Mike?
This professor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I had him before.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, he's cool.
For what class?
Intro to business.
Oh, no, I have this other guy for business. Last semester, I forget his name. He was cool too. He owned a chain of Dunkin' Donuts in Nebraska.
Oh, in Nebraska?
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, no, we did that. What other class are you taking this semester?
I'm taking college algebra. Yeah.
Have fun. Yeah, I try to avoid taking math classes this semester.
I just want to get them out the way. I did terribly on the placement test, but yeah, it is what it is.
Guys, I just want to let you know I lied to you. I didn't get a glass of water. I got a plate of Chinese food. So while you guys are doing your articles, I might like either mute my microphone in between bites, but just so I'm being honest with you guys, you know. So who wants to start? I can start alphabetically. You guys want to do that?
No, because then I'm always first.
Oh, you know I'm going to the bottom though, so we're gonna start with Yu-Yi Lee. Yu-Yi, I see you here as a guest down the bottom. Give you one more chance to answer. Do you not have a microphone? I see that you typed in the chat. Okay, good excuse, Yu-Yi. Next time, get it fixed. You can also log on to this class using your iPhone or Samsung device for next time. Yi Han Chen. Yi Han Chen. We 0 for 2 here, guys. Come on, guys. I want to have my first bite of dinner here, so someone has to talk about their article. We're going to move on. Xin Yu. Xinyu. Are you here? I see you here. Not talking.
Wait, is there like an example I can see first before I know how this goes?
That's the fun of it, is that I asked you to bring in a business or management article and you talk about it and then we all discuss it. So, you know, if you think it's related to business, then it's probably a fine article. And if you didn't bring anything today, I'm sure you'll hear people do it today and we can get you next time. But going forward, you have to do it.
Oh, I have it, but I just didn't know how am I supposed to do it.
Tell us what the title of the article is.
What CD Group's new female CEO, Jane Fraser, means for business and the next generation.
Okay. So what's important about that?
So I feel like they kind of like put it like, I feel like they kind of put like her femaleness into it. Like, I don't know why they made it like a big deal. It seems like a CEO being female was something that's like special because like there's not much article saying like new male CEO.
You know what? I agree with your perspective. I actually don't like that perspective either. When they try to like it's almost like they actively touted it as like, hey everyone, we hired the first female CEO for a big bank. Like, how progressive and awesome are we? You know, but this is a woman who worked there for like, as I understand it, like over 20 years. Like she's a big veteran in the company. It's done a lot of work. But you know, like it's kind of like promoting charity work in a sense. And I'm not saying promoting women is like charity. Don't interpret it that way. I'm just saying it's like sometimes people do charity work to promote it as marketing. And even though it still does good, it's also good for marketing, right? Like let's not ignore the marketing opportunity here. And there's a big push for what's called ESG investing, which stands for environmental, social, and governance, and like diversity on your board or diversity in leadership is a big part of the S in ESG, which is social. So being socially responsible. I mean, do you think it's important?
No, like I feel like people like should be like, so like I feel like no matter if it's like female or male, like they got like the role of CEO, like it should be because like they deserved it.
Yeah.
Like male or female shouldn't matter in this case or in any cases.
Well, you know, it shouldn't matter, but does it?
Like it shouldn't be like something like they sell it as like a point for everybody to like look at.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, you by saying that you do ignore like the reality of it is that there's a lack of diversity at the leadership in banks, and if you're gonna hire diversity, like you know, if it's your company, you want the best employee. And if the best employee also happens to be a woman, why not promote it, right? Just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying you're right and I'm wrong or vice versa, but yeah. Hey, that's a great article. We're gonna move on, but thank you for sharing that because we could talk about diversity issues. Really, at some point, we'll probably spend a whole class on it. So thank you so much. What about Oscar?
Hey everyone, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of funny because I based my article in something like it is about Chinese food, so funny enough.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. The name of my article is How Chinese American Restaurants Are Ensuring Their Future. Well, pretty much the whole base of the article, it's based on how Chinese restaurants are thriving during the COVID pandemic. Especially because we all know that when the pandemic started here in the U.S., Chinese restaurants were like one of the most affected businesses because they all suffer from some kind of racism, if we say it that way.
Stereotype, like these
stereotype.
Yeah,
that is the word. Thank you. It's been really hard for them because many, like probably like a bunch of Americans believe that COVID was going to be spread on Chinese food. Like it was going to be like one of the main sources of spreading, and it was not. It was like totally false. And after that, many in the U.S., many Chinese restaurants have had to close because it's been like really tough to stay on the field after this. And unlike other restaurants, for example, like what I'm reading on the article is that several other restaurants, like let's say American restaurants, have found support on small businesses loans.
So let's look at this. Let's take a step back, right? So we understood that there was initially some bias or stereotype or racism initially that probably hurt the sale of Chinese food. But you know, you mentioned also that the Chinese food sales are now doing great, right? So why are they doing great? Did we immediately become like not racist? And we're like, no, you know what? We don't hate Chinese people. We love Chinese people. I'm being an extremist, right? Like, is that why Chinese food rebounded?
I believe that the main reason why many Chinese restaurants rebounded on the economy is because once everybody got locked up in like at home and everybody stayed on quarantine, places where takeouts or deliveries are easier to get started to rise up. In this case, Chinese places, which in the American culture, I think Chinese restaurants are like the number one contender in takeout and delivery. So that's probably one of the reasons why when the pandemic started, all the Chinese restaurants suffer like a downturn.
What are you more likely to get for takeout? You're going to get food delivered or takeout, right? Like food delivered, you're going to eat it in your home. Are you more likely to get McDonald's delivered to your home or Chinese food? Because they're probably in the same category, like kind of budget, right? Which one would you order and why? Is there any unique characteristics of Chinese food that might give it an advantage compared to McDonald's getting delivered?
Might last a little bit longer.
That's the answer, right? Like Chinese food is a perfect, right next to pizza, it's a perfect delivery food. And it has nothing to do with like whether we became less racist or more racist, right? It's more of a function of, hey, this food actually perfect takeout food and it travels really well. Like there's certain food, like I don't really want to get a burger delivered because I feel like it's going to be cold, it's not going to travel well. But like, you know, pork fried rice and like the molten lava of General Gao's chicken, right? Like that's going to stay warm for like, you know, I feel like 45 minutes in a container, right?
And
So
I would say one thing is because Chinese food is the big dishes and with the cheap price. So that's why for some for females, so they can order one, they can have one order and eat like two, lunch and dinner, so something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you know the burger you cannot like separate like lunch and dinner, so only like one time. So if got cold, you don't want to eat it anymore. So
yeah, I don't think in the history of people, how many people had said, hey, you know that burger, can I get it to go? Right? In a to-go box? It's like a very unlikely thing you get to go, right? Because the bread, you know, the product, right? So I think you're absolutely right. But from a business standpoint, I think probably more likely it's related to like the product than like anything else than the environment. Great. I know Amin, or I think that's how you pronounce the name, said he needs to go next. Are you still there, sir?
Yeah, I just switched over to my phone. My internet is, I don't know what's wrong with it, but nonetheless, my article is called "Facebook is Facing Its Biggest Backlash Yet as Advertiser Boycott Gains Momentum." I actually read this article like a month back. I kind of just revisited it. I just thought it was hella interesting. But like the headline is, "There's never been pressure on Facebook like there is right now," one tech expert said. And the reason why, one of the reasons why I really kind of chose this article is because I know what it's like to be kind of in the advertiser's perspective, also as the consumers, given the fact that I do run ads on their platform. And the whole idea behind this, because Facebook has faced backlash numerous times in the past, but like this summer or this year, the main theme is that it's allowing advertisers to upload political campaigns that are said to have like hate speech in them, or like to sway like certain people to certain directions. And why
misinformation, right? Like misleading information.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm sure you watched the court hearing with Zuckerberg, but I think why it was a really cool topic to bring up is just because from his management perspective, he's being grilled, by senators, and they're asking him like, do you think it's okay for people to be able to use your platform to spread misinformation? That's like one side of the story, and his side of the story is that his response is just always, I believe that people should have, free speech using our platform. We don't really want to, I guess, censor things that people wouldn't get in trouble for saying in real life, but because it's our platform. So I think it was just a crazy dynamic, and it was really interesting hearing.
I'll pause you right there. Right, it's a big argument between like free speech and truth, and how do you regulate regulate the difference between like free speech and truth, right? Like, shouldn't you be allowed to say whatever you want? Versus, are you allowed to yell fire in a crowded building? Like, under the idea of free speech, like, are you allowed to do that? And there's kind of like an element of harm in that statement, right? Like, well, I think anyone would say, like, yeah, free speech is essential, but like, I don't want anyone yelling fire in a crowded building, right? Because that wouldn't be, people could get trampled, even if there's no fire, especially, right? Like, they're putting others at risk. And if I like, this is like a cliche thing that, I don't even want to call it cliche. It was an incident where they a foreign Facebook ad targeted a demographic of people and told them the election was on a different day. Like, right. I'm all for free speech, but that's like blatant misinformation, right? And it's targeted at a specific audience. So, the other side of this is, like, these websites are protected, like the users, like they're not responsible for the user statement. Or are they, right? It's actually a big regulatory question of whether they should be responsible for what's on their platform. And I think there's two layers to it. If I was going to be the politician, I would say in one layer, like, you and I should have free speech, right? For sure.
Right.
However, if like Russia is paying for advertising, or like whether it's Russia, me, or Oscar, or Jocelyn, or Kelsey, like, if you're paying for advertising, there should be some reasonability to what you're posting, some additional layer of scrutiny, right? Because you're actually engaging in a transaction, right, with Facebook in that case, compared to you just posting a meme, right? So I think that's the distinguishing difference, right, between the two. So I don't have all the answers. I'm sure none of us want misinformation, but we don't want, if we don't want misinformation, who do we want being responsible for overseeing the difference between free speech and, lies? That being said, let's make one more comment. I'm sorry, because I just had this thought pop into my head. That being said, there's a huge misconception. You have free speech. There's no obligation on behalf of Facebook to give you free speech. Like, you have free speech, but you're not entitled. Like, the Facebook platform is private. Like, they can regulate what is said. And that's the other argument to make. It's like, well, everyone should have free speech, and they do. But, just because like Google refuses to promote, like, one thing, I have a friend at Pinterest, actually, this is interesting. And he's pretty high up at Pinterest, and they made the decision to remove all like the anti-vaxxing stuff on Pinterest. And like, could be viewed as an impingement on free speech, but like in Pinterest view, it's not. It's like, hey, we're a private platform, and we don't want what we view as misinformation on the platform. So they made the choice to get rid of it. The other thing Pinterest got rid of in terms of verbiage was they removed reference to, I guess this is more popular down south, but to have a plantation wedding. And because like plantations have a racist kind of connection, they removed plantation weddings from the Pinterest search. So, and that was to help, like, because, I'm sure there was like racist stuff baked into some of these pictures, is how he implied the story. So, it's again, these companies are not entitled to give us free speech. We have our own free speech, but they're not entitled to give it to us or amplify our speech, right?
Right.
Great, thank you. Nadina?
Thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
I didn't know we had to bring anything because I'm new here today.
Okay, great. Well, happy you're here. So you're getting a good free sample today. So why don't next week you contribute? How's that sound?
Yep, that's perfect.
Awesome. Murteza?
I am here, Professor. I read article about Luckin Coffee. Maybe you know that they delist from US stock market but they are trying to um, come back. They need to uh, fight something to come back in United States stock market, but they have still 6,500 stores in China, like more than.
So what did they do? What did Luckin Coffee do? What was like what crime or what did they commit? What did they do?
Like
Scamming. Someone just wrote. Love it. Yeah. What did
normally
they do?
in China, people not prefer to drink a lot of coffee or tea. But it's this. I think it's the strange thing is, like, why, how can they manage the 6,500 store?
So I mean, what you might not know the answer, but I'll tell you what the answer is. Is they booked fraudulent sales. They said sales occurred when they did not. So they made fake receipts, made it appear that the stores were busy. Right? If you do that, the stock goes up. You can then sell more stock to get more money, and that's how you perpetuate a fraud. Right? So and that's what they did. And then now they admitted they got caught on the fraud, and because they got caught, they kind of admitted it and blamed an executive. But it's at the expense of sounding crass. It's kind of what I call like my Tiger Woods theory of bad behavior. And if you guys remember what happened with Tiger Woods like 10 years ago, is that like 10 women came forward and accused him of like cheating on his wife and all this other stuff. So if 10 women came forward, how many women must there be? There must be like 200, because those are only the 10 that came forward. So when you hear about like fraud perpetrated at a company, and like similar you can hear with Boeing, like Boeing had an engineering disaster, and it's like now it's like one thing and another thing. It's because when you have bad behavior, it completely permeates the culture. And it's almost like if using a personal example is easier, right? Like if you catch your significant other cheating, it's not because it's their first time. It's the first time you caught them. There's been 200 times that you didn't catch. So similar with bad behavior at organizations, if you see a company cooking their books, performing unethically, this is just the stuff you saw. So imagine what you haven't seen yet. And usually, if you take that approach, you're usually right. And if you think about it on a micro level, like if everyone at your company takes a 2-hour lunch when the handbook says everyone gets 30 minutes, what are you going to do? Certainly take more than 30 minutes, right?
Yes.
And that's how this stuff kind of permeates into a culture, right? In not a good way.
But like, it's the strange thing. Like they delist from U.S. stock market, but they have still the same store, like 6,500. They have still, like, they didn't close some of the stores. Like, I read this article share, like, which one I read?
Hey, we
September
didn't say
14th.
that they're not profitable, or we didn't say that they don't make any money. We're just saying that they're liars. And so, I'm looking at the stock right now, and you're right. Like, hey, they still have the stores, but the stock went from $50 in January to $2 today. If you're an investor, it doesn't matter how many stores they have. You lost like 95% of your money. So it doesn't matter how many stores they have. The question is like, do you stick with your investment, knowing that you're working with people who are potentially unethical liars and who just got caught? Or do you move on? And usually the best advice is to like move on from those situations. You see one thing, just remember this. Be like, if this is what I'm hearing now, how much other bad stuff is out there? And I'm not talking about like wrongful accusations. It's like with Boeing. It's like, dude, the plane crashed. Something's wrong, right? There wasn't like, oh, I wonder if they did anything wrong. It was obvious, right? And when you see obvious bad behavior, like admitting to cooking your books, like for me, that's it. We're done. Like, there's no reason to. Would you engage in a business if it wasn't a stock? Would you form a business partnership with this person? There's no way you would, right?
But like, it's this strange thing. Like, if you don't have an investor, and how can you make profit?
I mean, they do have an investor. All their investors lost 98% of their money. They have investors. They're just poor now.
But they have investor, but now they don't have, and they like. They
Well,
try.
that's because, and this is like we'll talk about this in a later chapter, but that's because a lot of companies use their stock as a source of funding. So when a company goes public, they don't sell the entire company on the stock market. They'll like sell it in 5% pieces. They'll be like, hey, we have a public offering, an IPO. We're going to sell 5% of our company on the stock market. And when they need more cash, if the stock is higher, they'll go back to the market. I mean, this is why Tesla's stock is allegedly up, is because if the stock price is up, that means Elon Musk can get access to more money at a cheaper rate and therefore build faster. But like, that's a slippery game to play because you're relying on people believing in you, so the stock price goes higher. And if the stock price goes higher, you're going to sell more of it to like fund the belief that you can grow it. If you ever hit a hiccup and the stock goes down, like your funding dries up. So to your point, like they would have to sell so much more of the company on the public market to get any meaningful capital that it's just like, why bother? And like you said, they're trying to create a coffee market in China. There's better investment opportunities in the world, right?
But like chairman, like the Luckin Coffee chairman, uh, they default on like 5 million margin loan, and I think now some people trust to Luckin Coffee because
No, you're crazy. I disagree with that. I don't want to call you crazy, but
no,
that's
no,
not polite. But
you know,
the idea that I would, and I'm not. I know you're not telling me to recommend it, but I'm going to be like really strongly opinionated on this. Like, I wouldn't do business with a cheat. Like, why bother? Like, they're better. Like, why not just play Keno? Play lottery tickets if you're going to do that. You're going to have better odds at winning, right? Because if, like I said, if they're doing, remember what I said, the Tiger Woods theory of bad behavior. If they're doing this and we caught them doing this, imagine what else is going on that you haven't found out about. Right? It's just life, right? And you know, most people, when there's like anything, when you see a company or a person makes large lapses in ethical behavior, it's never a one-off. It's usually a consistent pattern. And if you see the red flag and you choose to ignore it, you know, at your own risk. I'm like, hey, you know what, man? Dunkin' Donuts looks like a better investment. You know, why? If you want to invest in a coffee company, you know, do that.
like some people are trusting to Luckin Coffee. I am not trusting too. Like it's very risky, and like it's like if you in the stock market, the first thing is you have to trust the company. I think.
And if you don't trust the numbers, then you have nothing, right?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate the article. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me go to the next person here. Mariama.
Hi. Sorry, this is my first day of class. I didn't know we had to bring an article today.
Oh, you know what? You get to observe today then, and you'll bring one next time like the other women, right?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you. Li Jing Yao? Li Zhang Yao?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I read an article about the TikTok.
Ah, great. Okay.
So I read news from both sides because I can read Chinese, right? So
yes.
I read Chinese version and VS US version. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, I try to read like the Financial Times, which comes from Europe. It's good to get other people's opinions too, and other regions' opinions. You know.
In the United States, I think still stand right. According to update information, I think TikTok already accepted the deal.
I think China still has to technically approve it, but it sounds like a deal that's not a deal. I mean, I'll let you speak to it, but I already have an opinion on it.
Actually, one Hong Kong writer, he said that the deal is not a really deal because he doesn't think the TikTok is the big threat to the United States. He thinks Zoom is, you know. He thought the government in China is like giving the small fish out and leave the big fish back, keep the advantage back up. So they think Zoom is really threatened, actually. So it's pretty interesting. But in fact, the TikTok in China is a private company. It's a private company, private owned. But I don't know Indeed, it is private owned or state or I don't know, but
from the and I can only speak from like the American like U.S. official perspective, right? Like I don't know the answer personally, but like the U.S. position on this is that like any company in China, even if they're private, the belief in the U.S. is that China could be like, yeah, we know you're a private company, but you better give us that damn data we want because we'll throw your ass in jail. And then you're all of a sudden you're like, yeah, we're a private company, but we did what China wanted, right?
Some company, yes, I believe so, but some of them, but not all. So it depends the size. Yeah.
I'd push back and say you're right. It's not all until they ask, right? You're like, oh yeah, we do with all companies. Only the ones we ask, right?
But you know what? The Chinese people are very pissed off about the selling TikTok to the United States. They feel like not happy with it. The people, the people.
This plays into like all this nationalism, like nationalism in China, nationalism in the U.S. I mean, in my opinion, it depends how far you want to go into this story, which we won't go that far, but like, the Chinese do similar stuff with technology by not allowing, like Facebook is not in China, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe China's onto something by not allowing Facebook if it's like can be used as a massive propaganda tool, right?
Even Google. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's why China's hesitant. They're like, yeah, we saw what the mess that is for you guys at the moment. What do we want to bring that into China for? So, but if it was a Chinese social media company, I'm sure they would allow it because there already is some. So it's a prickly issue. So again, I don't claim to have all the answers, but it wasn't really. They didn't force a sale. It's almost like TikTok is a client of Oracle, but like TikTok is still private. Basically, the data in the U.S. is going to flow through Oracle. So, and I don't mean to. How do I say this without being controversial?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the deals that we've done in the last 4 years in the U.S. haven't been like game changers. They've been like, oh, we're going to change this little thing and call it a Trump deal, right? At least so far through my view on the economics. I'm not trying to take a side on this. I'm just, I'm going to call it as I see it, right?
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next, we'll go to Letitia.
I have a quick question before you move on.
Yes, sir.
Lee, in the article, because I could have sworn I read somewhere where China recently changed their laws in order to
prevent technology transfers out for. They basically created a law that says like the U.S. can't force a Chinese company to sell, which is like I agree with that law. Like I think it sets a terrible precedent for U.S. companies operating overseas, because if the U.S. can say to a Chinese company, yeah, we're going to force you to sell, like what would stop China from saying like, hey, that iPhone factory is now our iPhone factory because like we want it and we'll give you 25 cents on the dollar for it. Like we wouldn't have it. What could we say?
Yeah.
Nothing. But actually, I believe the people would embrace all the innovation, whatever is belong to China, belong to United States, is good. But the thing is that I think basically now the chaos just because the politics, I think it's my bias probably, but I think maybe it would be better for sure in the future.
I agree with you. I mean, 5 years ago, it's also our bias. Like we're in New England. And like we have kind of like high skilled jobs here. A lot of the jobs in the New England area are not at risk of being outsourced to China. But if we were like in Pittsburgh and like half the class's family worked for the steel mill, like we might have a different opinion on like, and I might have a different opinion because I'd be more impacted by it. That being said, like 5 years ago, no one was talking about this. It wasn't a big issue. People were not all as jazzed up about it as they are today, right? So I would agree with that statement,
But now China has moved some factory to Vietnam, so now the world center of manufacturing would be in South Asia in the future.
Well, China you also bring up a good point. The jobs don't leave China and come to the U.S. they leave China and go to the next cheapest location.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. We moved. We have to move because the high salary in China salary gets higher and higher.
Well,
So
you know, you
we
bring up a
have
good
same
point.
issue.
Jobs were moving out of China into Vietnam and all this stuff. Like Vietnam, I don't know how it's doing today, but for a while, like the Vietnam stock index was killing it because like all this business was moving from China to Vietnam.
I think that even without like the trade problem between United States and China, and the industrial movement, it's how to say, happens before the trade problem between the two countries. So I think it just push, it goes faster. It goes faster. Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that, guys. I appreciate the comments. And now I think we go to Leticia, right?
Hi. So my article is named Microsoft Seeks Startup Partnerships in Battle with Amazon Over Cloud. So during the pandemic, Microsoft tried a new tactic, which was like selling their cloud storage to businesses. And what they're doing to the businesses is they're offering to help them sell their services as well. So that helps them like get other businesses, and it helped their stocks go up like 30% during the pandemic. But Amazon is already ahead of the game, and they've been selling their cloud storage to other businesses as well, and their percentage of the stocks went up 70% due to the cloud. But I think it's important that Microsoft is offering to help other businesses sell their services, and that's a way of like networking.
Yeah, so one thing to think about, like, what is the cloud? And, you know, obviously we know cloud storage is like anything you store up on the internet, but the cloud business is like significantly more complex than that, because even just breaking it down to two layers, right? You have cloud storage, but then you have cloud processing, which is like, are you manipulating the data offsite and storing it offsite? Or are you just simply storing it offsite and then manipulating it on your phone or on your desktop? And the security along with those considerations, as well as like how much horsepower a company wants to buy, like makes the business like super dynamic. Like, what are you going to put on top of it? Like, so all of the software I use for my work, for the most part, it's in the cloud, and I can access like all my work stuff on my iPad, my desktop, and even my cell phone. And that's because the processing, the security, and the storage is all done on the cloud. So I can access it through like any platform. I mean, even if you think about it from like a stupid video game like Fortnite, like how much of that is like processed on the cloud? Like not all the processing is done on your iPhone if you play that game on your iPhone, right? Some of that like data and stuff is pulled off site. So even when you think about it from the business perspective or from the perspective of, I mean, here's another way a cloud works, right? If I call my car dealership, but like not the one I went to, if I call like Herb Chambers BMW instead of Herb Chambers Mercedes, like the cloud computing they use will notify Herb Chambers Mercedes that I might be looking for a new car. And I guarantee you, if I call Herb Chambers BMW, Herb Chambers Mercedes is going to call me tomorrow, because that's how they're integrating their CRM, their customer service management systems, with the cloud. So like all I have to do is call, and then someone gets an email and be like, hey, Mike Collins is looking at competing dealerships, right? And that's the power of the cloud. Like, or I think at some restaurants now, if you just give them your phone number, they have all the information, all that stored in the cloud, pulled and pushed, all that stuff. So, you know, super interesting. But hey, thank you for that article. Kelsey?
Yep, just had to unmute myself. So the article I brought, it's called, one second, it's called Moderna Shares the Blueprint for its Coronavirus Vaccine Trial. So that because they are the first pharmaceutical company to share their blueprint, and that's not a typical move that pharmaceutical companies or vaccine companies do. In that industry, everyone is really conscious of the intellectual property, and they don't want to share. There's a lot of competition between companies, so they brought in someone who is well versed in ethics to situation, and they did share this blueprint, and their hope was that this would make it so people who are more hesitant to get the vaccine or share anti-vaxxer views, it would put their concerns to rest. So in the article, it says that there's 44,000 people who are going to be in this trial, and half the people are going to get the vaccine, half are going to get the saltwater placebo. And I don't know, I'm very interested in biotech, so I thought that was a very appropriate article to share.
Yeah. So, one thing that is, interesting in regards to that is that the way they're incentivizing the vaccine. So if they were just working on a private drug, like for the market, they probably wouldn't be sharing this information. But these drug companies actually have an incentive, and they're required to kind of information share, right? It was kind of the trade-off with getting money from the government here. So, that's why they're acting a little bit unusual. Like, oh, why are they releasing all this information publicly? And also, if they release this information publicly and they try to pound their chest, make it seem like they're doing great, I mean, that's helpful for their stock price, right? And I don't want to be oblivious to potential, side interests some of these companies might have. If your management is heavily incentivized with stock, don't be surprised when they act in such a way to get the stock price to move higher, right? And that's a big question with management is how do you incentivize people? And you want your management to have ownership interests, so they act in the long-term best interest, but sometimes having that share price will actually make them to act short-term. So one solution companies have done is they give the senior management shares, but they can't sell them for 5 years or 10 years, right? So you basically force them into long-term incentives. Thanks so much, Kelsey. Karina?
Hi. Yeah, so my article, it was something that kind of stood out to me, because I know that a lot of businesses today are kind of furloughing their employees, and a lot of employees are getting laid off. So one thing that stood out to me was Mayor de Blasio announced that he's going to have to furlough a bunch of staff members. And it just stood out to me because I never would have expected someone from City Hall to lose their job or just to go without pay. And it just shocked me because the pandemic just brought on so much just so much shortcomings that it never would have expected so many people to just be out of work, especially City Hall.
Well, I mean, the one thing is that, the federal government can print unlimited money, right? But state governments cannot. So what's happened is that you have think about all the money that's spent on sales tax, you going shopping, you buying stuff, all that money's evaporated, right? It's not coming in. So that leads to state budget shortfalls. And the state budget shortfalls, part of the reason the defund the police discussion is coming up is because public workers know that people are coming and getting laid off. So the teachers are looking at the firefighters and the firefighters looking at the police, and none of them want to get laid off. Doesn't matter which one you're in. But if the federal government doesn't bail out the states, then these governments are going to be forced to lay off teachers, firefighters, and cops, right? So, who knows what will happen? I think they'll eventually bail out the states. But, I mean, Because why not? I mean, in my view, like, why lay off workers, right? You're going to lay off a cop for what? Lay off a firefighter for what? Lay off a teacher? Come on. You know, in reality, good economic principle is that the government should spend a lot of money when times are bad. So, like, laying off workers, especially state and federal workers, is like the opposite of what you're supposed to do in a weak economy. In reality, this is when the government's supposed to come in and say, hey, we're going to redo all the highways and roads in Massachusetts to spend money and get, like, blue collar workers back to work, right? So, but, you know, I don't see that happening. Although with the light amount of traffic, it would be the perfect time to do it, right?
Yeah, that's a good, and it's funny because as soon as everything was lifted, that, like, I feel like construction went up like 10 times more in Boston. Like everywhere you go, it's even more. So I mean, their budgets probably didn't get cut, but
well, I mean, the problem is that some of these buildings are halfway done, and you're all racing against each other. Be like, hey, we're halfway done. We better finish up so we can sell it before they finish and they have to sell theirs. Because, like, city office construction is going to be terrible for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Right? And most of that has to happen anyways because a lot of the real estate value is going up, so people don't want to really miss out on that because it's taking a big blow because a lot of people aren't even able to pay their mortgages on time, and it's just affecting a lot on that scale.
Well, the real estate market is really a tale of two cities, right? Because, you know, if you live in the suburbs or somewhere rural, you're actually doing awesome right now. And if you have like a condo in the North End, it's actually like the worst time to have to sell it if you do, right? I saw a guy I know sells apartments in the Seaport. They're giving 3 months of free rent in the Seaport, basically effectively 25% off. Now, rents there are super expensive, don't get me wrong, but, you know, it shows how desperate they are for people. Like, and think about all the people who didn't come back this year, all the international students, tourists, you know, a whole host of people that are a big part of our local economy, right? Thank you for that article. Go ahead, what?
And my husband from our city just got back to work to go into the office on Mondays, and he got an apartment for half off.
Who's this?
Like Upper East Side. My older brother, Upper East Side apartment, half off. So, and it has like a roof deck and everything, like a private roof deck. It's absurd.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, let us know when the party is. We'll be there. You know.
Yeah, so he's looking at patio furniture.
I mean, you know, the thing is, guys, is like that's not uncommon, right? Like, what's the actual like value you'll get from living in the city? A lot of it is evaporated too, right? Like the benefit for you being in downtown Boston is not as much as it was like, you know, a year ago, right? Like the convenience, it's almost become inconvenient to be in the city, right? So why would you then pay a premium to do so? You would then say, hey, I don't want to pay a premium. I want a discount, right? The problem is that the way they're trying to lower the price is by giving 3 months of free rent. So like in year 2, it's back to full price. And my question is like, that's not cheap enough because next year it's not going to be back to full price either. And I don't even know if 2 years it's going to be back to full price, right? Thank you so much. Jocelyn?
Hi.
Jocelyn. Oh, hey.
Hi. So my article stood out to me because, first of all, I played it safe because I wasn't sure what the gist of what you were looking for. So I got something that was basically on management, and it got my attention because I recently was speaking about this with my boyfriend's cousin, and it's about the struggles of getting promoted while working from home.
Oh yeah.
And so the article is called "While Working Remotely, Here's How to Get Noticed and Promoted." So I was talking to her about, she has someone that always has worked from home already, like even before the pandemic. And that this person, she's a girl, she's had problems being noticed or being set back because no one added her into the emails to like go to the meetings, and she would be missing out on last minute meetings and putting her input on big projects that were about her title, about her career. And there was a woman in the article as well that she worked for Butcher Box, which is here in Boston, but she works in Pennsylvania. And she was getting all these last minute meetings and she couldn't get in on them. And it was about her job title. and she wanted to
Yeah.
put her input on that. So there was just like they surveyed like 60 people from that were working from home, and just getting a little bit of what they would think would help getting people promoted. So I got a couple of these on my notes. So like the tips would be like, check in, make sure your boss knows that you're good with your project, and if you can help out with other projects, please raise your hand as much as possible. So just emailing in contact with your boss and just being like, hey, I'm done with this. If you needed help with this other project, please let me know. I'm more than willing to help. And then getting enlightened to know your boss's goals and your company's goals, and to see if anything that your boss needs to make their job easier definitely gets you noticed. So if you get something off their plate, you can it just shows points that you're interested in the goal, in that final goal for the company or for your boss. And then speaking up, if you're left out in a meeting, say something. I always say this, like, a mouth doesn't get fed if you don't speak up. So
Totally, 100% agree. Yeah.
So I definitely advocate that one. Always speak up if you feel like you're being left out, or they're not listening to your opinion. So something that they said is frequently look at your meetings and see if you're being CC'd on the link to the meeting or the call in, and then express your goals to your boss. Always express your goals. Try to make some time to talk, to have one-on-ones with your manager or your boss, and to let them know you're ready for the next step, ready for the next management position, or whatever your goal is within the company. And then another one that someone else was saying in the butcher box was to even make a little meetings with other coworkers just to see what they're doing, even if it's not partaking with your projects or your job entitlement, just to see what they're doing in that side of the company, and if you could even step in and help out, just to get noticed. And I think something that stood out to me was the CEO of ButcherBox was saying that he's noticed this problem being ongoing before the pandemic. So he was saying that if and when they go back to work, he's going to try to not be in the office as much, because he noticed that if he was in the office as much, he would be called in for last minute meetings, and the people that were working remotely weren't being inputted in these last minute meetings to make big decisions. So he said if he's not physically there as much, they would have to do them virtually, and the people that are working remotely would have to be in these last minute meetings.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of information there. I mean, some of the stuff you're talking about is like you assume your boss is willing to do it, right? Like, hey, have a engaging dialogue, get to know them. Like, there's a big assumption there is that they want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's not always going to be the case,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really all. I mean, great. I don't really have anything else to add. But that was a really interesting perspective. Working from home or working remotely, or even being like, there's some workers before coronavirus that was remote. I worked with a woman at a bank once, and her husband had to move for a job, and they let her do her job remotely, and she got very dissatisfied because she thought like her bonus got smaller and her raises got less, and she wasn't noticed as much. And I had another similar experience, another woman I work with who was like, did halftime from home, and the other time, because she was a single mom, and she felt like, that overlooked and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the reality is not whether it's fair, is that if people see you less, they're going to value you less, right? So, if they don't physically see you doing the work and contributing, like, this is why some people do the weird move where they just try to leave the latest to make it look like they're working the hardest. And guess what? I mean, sometimes that works. I have never been a fan of that strategy. I'm like, well, I'm done. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But like, that's been to my own detriment sometimes. I used to be part of this group where like everyone hung around till the last person was done. And I was like, that's stupid. Why? I mean, like, if you're not, like, why am I going to hang out to the last? It wasn't like we weren't a cleaning crew, right? This was like, we all had our own roles and responsibilities in this team. Why do I have to hang out until this person leaves? Like, what if they're slow, right? And maybe I'm having a bad team atmosphere or vibe, or whatever you want to call it. But, it's how people work together. Thank you so much. What about Jimmy? Jimmy, you here? All right, we're going to move to, and I apologize, Jisei, Jiecai. You here?
Yes, I'm here. So I read the article is about Amazon will be the most important company of the 2020s. I very agree with that because you know during this pandemic there are so many people willing buying something online, so especially on Amazon. So if you have the Prime, so like $25 $50 a year, so and then you can get the express something like delivery, so it saves a lot of time and you don't need to go out, and then you know what you want, so you can just go straight to buy it. So I think that is like there are so many store especially there are so many stores closed, and then Amazon still open for everybody. So I would say that is very very good. And I mean the stock market in the long term, I think Amazon is the good choice as well in my
Yeah, one
mind.
thing Amazon, you risk an Amazon regulatory risk. Meaning that the government says, hey, you guys got too big, we're going to break you up, or we're going to tax you at a higher rate. Like, the government can make a tax law that says if you make above a certain amount of money, we're going to tax you more. And it turns out like Amazon's the only one who makes that money, that much, right? You can tax back it just for. And guess what? Like Amazon has been like a winner from the pandemic.
Yes,
So,
I agree with that. Better
easy
than
target.
eBay. Yeah.
Easy target. I mean, Apple too, right? Like Apple's being kind of raked over the coals for like the 30% fee it charges to like app developers, right? Is that too much?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, depends who you ask, right? But
that's good. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
How about Henry? We're almost done with the articles, guys. So we're gonna move on to the slides.
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead, Henry.
So the article I read was basically Sony and their struggles in the first quarter with PlayStation 4 sales.
Mm-hmm.
But during the pandemic, they were able well, they weren't able. It just happened where they increased sales on the subscription they offer. So they have this thing called PS Plus where I guess they receive free game, like the users receive free games and other like perks like playing online and stuff. And they were able to grow it by 3.5 million users.
Well, yeah, I mean, more people at home, more people have time to play video games. I don't have time to play video games, but I beat the first video game I've ever beaten in like 5 years during like the beginning of the pandemic. Why? I just had more time. I didn't like start liking video games more. And but maybe this captures new markets. Like, maybe your dad plays video games now and he didn't used to. Maybe your girlfriend plays what's that Nintendo game? Like not Farmville. It's like someone must know what I'm talking about. It's like a farm game on Nintendo. It's really popular.
Animal Crossing.
There we go. Close enough. Yeah, Animal Crossing. Farm, animal, whatever. Bringing new people into that market, is going to expand it. So the PlayStation 5 actually got released last night. It was sold out like instantly. I actually had one in my cart on Best Buy, and then it like disappeared before I could finish paying for it. So I'm without a PlayStation 5, guys. But hey, thank you for that. Go ahead. Sorry.
How they say that their sales were down 40%, but they still sold 1.9 million, which is like in that quarter.
Well, I mean, who's going to buy a PlayStation 4? The sales down 40% is probably not a surprise because it's like the sales of like the iPhone 10 are probably down 40% too, because we all know the 12's coming out next month, right? So some of that, while seems bad, is like super expected. Like who would buy, like even if you were going to buy a PlayStation 4, you'd be crazy not to find a used one, right? Like what are you going to go buy a new one for? Right. And I don't mean to speak down to you about it. I'm just saying from the perspective of, when there's like, down 40%, that's more a function of the product cycle than like bad business, right? The other thing that's positive for PlayStation is that more people are buying the games online, so they get to cut out the middleman being GameStop, and make more of that money right for themselves and keep more profit. And then I think I might have mentioned this, but it's one of the things that I like about video game stocks right now is that prices of video games are going up for the first time in 15 years. Video games are going to be $70 starting next year compared to 60. So when you think about it on a percentage basis, they're going to make an extra $10 a game. Like you multiply that by millions sold, that's a lot of money, right? And if Sony is going to be selling these direct, they're not only getting more money by cutting out GameStop, they're going to make more money by just charging more. So, for me, that sounds like a really attractive business going forward. So thank you for sharing that. What about Chris?
Can you see me? Is it working?
I hear you and I see you.
Okay, cool. It gets weird because then I can't see anything. Yeah, so the article that I brought, to be honest with you, I didn't bring an article, but once everybody got started, then I managed to find one that interested me. So it's titled Portnoy Momentum Can Drive Penn National 25% Higher. So Dave Portnoy, you know who he is. He's the head of Barstool Sports.
Yeah, Penn Gaming is my biggest personal stock position, so I'm intimately familiar with the story. But go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say because it jumped 10% today, so you made a lot of money today.
It didn't just jump 10% today; it's like up 125% in the last month. And and from March, if you look back at March, I have it up on my screen right here because it's like the only it's like weird. I'm in love with the stock, right? It's up 185% since the start of the year. But this is your article, so I'll let you finish.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And that's I don't know a lot about stocks. I haven't gotten into stocks. I'm real estate investing for now until I've got the money to play with stocks. But I don't feel comfortable with stocks yet. I don't know enough, so I don't like losing money. But yeah, anything that Dave seems to tie his name to just absolutely blows up. And the main thing that interested me is the Davey Day Trader Global that he's been doing, where it's his little podcast where he gets on right at market open and he day trades all day. Ever since he's been a part of or partnered with Penn National, he's been doing that, and I've always thought it's been such a fine line because he makes the statement, I am not I'm not a financial advisor or whatever. He makes that claim, yet he tells people what he's about to buy, and then everybody that follows him, millions of people, go in and buy those stocks and they raise, and then he sells. So he makes money every single day doing this. And is that legal?
Yes, because he's not a professional, and the social media rules and free speech don't prevent you from doing that. However, he's not he has a big presence. I compare from if I try to figure out someone who I think was similar in terms of media personality, David Portnoy reminds me an awful lot of Howard Stern in terms of the ravenous fan base, stuff like that. But at some point he's going to get the stocks wrong and it'll go sideways, or he'll stop doing the stock stuff. There's also bigger wallets than his, so someone could make a bet against him with more money, even if they combined his fans. There's people with more money than his fans and him, right? So he won't always make it right. That being said, I wish every time I bought a stock, I could tell the universe that I'm buying it and everyone would listen, because that definitely wouldn't hurt.
Right. It helps his chances for sure.
Yeah, but if a company puts up a bad quarter, nothing's going to help that. So, but the value of Penn Gaming, which is a casino company that bought the company Barstool Sports, is that they're launching online gambling apps for your phone.
Yep.
So this part of their business is going from zero, and it will eventually become a large part of not only their business, but the gambling market. At least that's what I believe. I believe that there's only going to be 2 or 3 big players in online gambling, and Penn Gaming will be one of them. There's also DraftKings and FanDuel and Caesars Palace and Golden Nugget, But eventually, you know, the one thing about the online gambling market is that customer acquisition is very expensive. Meaning, if you want to get a new customer, you have to give them like $500 in free gambling credits, and they'll do it because they hope you become a gambling addict and that you'll just like keep on gambling and they'll make money because the house always wins. But you know, that's also expensive customer acquisition. Just look at like, you know, a story about expensive customer acquisition. Just look at like Blue Apron, right? Like they were growing like a weed, but it was so expensive for them to get new customers. Like a new customer had to order like 6 meals, six weeks of meals, just to like make up for the cost to get that customer, the marketing cost. And most people quit after the 6th meal. So like I know when they legalize online gambling en masse later this year, I'll probably download one of these apps just for the free money and then move on to the next one. Because I'm not a real gambler, but I like free money. You know?
Exactly. Yep.
Great. Thank you. Kathy? Kathy there? If not, you know what? I know we still have AJ. AJ, do you have an article or what's your article, sir?
If you want, it's fine.
No, I mean, you have one left. What's the point of skipping the last person, yeah?
My article is actually something that I do resonate with. It's something that I'm actually dealing with at the moment. It's called, It's Not Micromanaging If It's Done Right. So it's something that I know most people at some point in their career or their job, you have to deal with a micromanager. Some people, it benefits them, you know, it keeps them disciplined and keeps them on track. I'm not one of those people. I'm the complete opposite. Like if I feel like I'm being micromanaged, it doesn't motivate me. You know, I feel like I'm just a robot coming in and you could get a monkey to do my job if that's the case, you know? So I'm kind of like in the middle because of course I get supervised, but I also supervise somebody myself. And I see both spectrums of it. So one of the other things the article talks about is basically like there is an effective and a good way of micromanaging where it doesn't come off as micromanaging. So, I mean, as far as like my boss, one of the issues we had is, you know, I'm part of the leadership group as well. And one of the things you do in the leadership group is you go around, you give a brief summary of your projects and what you're working on and things like that. And most of the time they would go to her first before they would come to me, and everything that she would talk about was basically things that I was doing and things that I accomplished or things that I came up with. So by the time it gets to me, I don't really have much to say after that point. So, you know, kind of going into taking credit for other people's work, and it definitely was that way. I mean, she used to do the job herself before me, and she did it for a very long time. And so it was kind of like she didn't really want to give up power or give up credit for how things were going, and she still wanted to, you know, report and things like that. There were sometimes where micromanaging gets a little too far, and she was kind of one of those. I remember one time I was on the phone and I was transferring somebody, and I said, just give me 1 second, I'll transfer you over. And I remember getting called into the office and having a discussion about how I should actually say, give me a moment instead of giving me a second, since to transfer it actually takes more than 1 second. And I thought that was like the most frivolous, you know, pointless conversation to ever have, because it's like, not only are you dictating exactly what I do, how I do it, and when I do it, now you're even getting to the point of now you're telling me how I should actually speak. So there's a lot of issues like that, and having to CC her on everything and letting her know what's been done, what hasn't been done, you know, and that's not what I signed up for. So I learned a lot about that and how to effectively manage in a better way. So with my staff, I do feel like sometimes I micromanage, but it's usually for the right reasons. It's the fact that I have a broader and a bigger picture of what
the micromanager will always say it's for the right reasons, though, won't he?
Well, like I think I effectively micromanage, meaning, you know, I make sure she gets credit for the work, you know. I make sure that she sees how her overall value fits into what we're working on, what the project is all about, and why she's being tasked to do it. That it's not just mundane, this and that. It's really helping somebody out. So there was a time we worked on a project for a group of nurses, and it was basically just stuffing some stuff and printing and copying and mailing some things out, and it's just regular mundane admin work. But then when I explained to her, look, this is what these are the things that the nurses have to deal with on a daily basis. So just taking this off their plate just literally saved them like a whole day's worth of work, where now they can continue, going out and assessing folks and helping the elderly that really need to be helped. And it gave her a broader idea of like, oh, okay, this isn't just a menial task that I'm doing. It really is helping somebody, and it's adding value to the company itself. And then expressing the importance of what we're working on and how it ties into everything, I think, is a big factor. Giving credit when it's due. Only stepping in really when it's something that I know is beyond her ability, which I think, like I said, it goes back into effective management, is knowing your staff, knowing what their weaknesses are, what their abilities are, understanding what their goals are, and tying that into the project, and and saying, "Hi, this is how it's going to help you get to where you're trying to get to." And then kind of leaving them to their own devices after that. Just get it done. I trust that it gets done, and until you give me a reason where I don't have to trust you, then we're okay.
Yeah, I mean, you brought one thing that kind of struck me, as someone asked you to like change your language, and I just think I thought of an example where I've been successful doing that. Like, I instead of like calling a potential client a prospect, I call them potential clients, right? And I found that potential clients like that word better than prospect, right? Yeah. And it just can be like, it can impact the results you get. So I don't know. No,
I agree. There are some instances, and one case in point is like my staff. She had uh, she was a little behind on like the grammar and things like that, sending out email and professional structure, format and things like that. So one of her things is, in order for her to emphasize something, she would always underline things. And so, a lot of these emails, they're going out to the board, they're going out to directors and chiefs and things like that. So I did pull her aside, and I kind of explained to her grammatically, like things that she could work on and improve, and other ways to emphasize something besides underlining, because it does come off a little elementary. And that was a thing that but I didn't dictate how to do it. I just pointed out to her things that needed to be improved on, and then she went out and figured it out, and I noticed a tremendous difference in the emails without me having to dictate to her exactly how I want emails written and things like that, versus telling somebody exactly words to say. And like I said, there are instances where it does impact and it makes a difference, but to me, in the scheme of things, I mean, telling somebody give me 1 second or give me one moment didn't really make a difference if I'm transferring the call anyway.
Yeah, no, it might not even change anything either, right? So, but it's good that you're aware of your own style too. That might even help you in your own situations, being aware that you might tend to micromanage, right?
Mm-hmm. But I think it's going through the bad to understand the good.
Yeah, well, that's great. Hey, thank you so much for sharing. So, now, guys, we're going to pivot to the slides. And, I'm going to try to go through these, I don't want to say quickly, but efficiently for you guys, right? Give me 1 second. I'm going to share the slides.
Michael, I have a question. You still work at State Street?
No, I haven't for quite a long time, sadly.
Okay. So now you full-time professor, right?
No, I'm not that either.
Okay. Good to know.
I'm a full-time wealth manager, and then I teach a couple college classes on the side. So this is kind of like a side gig for me. Okay. Although I really like the professor stuff. It. So chapter 2 is about making decisions, right? Which is like, you're going to have a whole chapter on making decisions, but it's really walking through the psychology of some of these decisions that you'll make. So what we're going to do is describe the 8 steps in the decision-making process. Actually, guys, give me 30 seconds. I swear I'm not getting more Chinese food. I am just going to grab another little cup of water really quick. All right, guys, thanks for being patient with me. Develop your skill at being creative, right? To be a good manager, you might have to be creative. Explain the 4 ways managers make decisions, classify decisions and decision-making conditions, describe biases and how they affect decision-making, and know how to recognize these biases, because if you can recognize your bias, that's the only way you're going to correct it, right? Or attempt to offset it. And then identify effective decision-making techniques. Be a better decision maker. Key to success in management and in your career is knowing how to be an effective decision maker. What is a decision? I mean, come on, pretty basic, but a choice among options, right? What option is best, right? And it's going to depend on the environment you're in and the resources that you have. So what are the real steps in the decision-making process? 1, you're identifying the problem. 2, identifying the decision criteria. So if you're deciding on buying a laptop in this example, you're going to like, well, what makes a good laptop? Well, some combination of memory, display quality, battery life, warranty, and weight. And then, but like those factors have a different weighting. Like battery life might be most important to you, or speed, right? You're going to weight all the things. So allocating weights to your criteria, what's most important? Then you're going to develop alternatives. What are your best choices? And then you're going to analyze those alternatives, select an alternative, and then implement it, right? And that's just the complete evaluation process. And then after the fact, you evaluate, was this a good purchase? Was this a good decision? And those are all the steps of the decision-making process. So again, not to spend a lot of time on this, but a problem is an obstacle that makes it difficult to achieve a desired goal or purpose. Every decision starts with a problem and a discrepancy between an existing and a desired condition. Example is Amanda's a sales manager whose reps need new laptops. What laptops do we buy our employees? I'm sure if you haven't, you will. You're going to get a company laptop at some point, and you're going to be complaining about how it's slow. And like the company didn't allocate the right resources, or they're using old stuff, right? Reminds me, I want to make a request to get more RAM for my laptop, because I feel like having not enough RAM is slowing down my computer when I'm doing video conferences and then using complex software at the same time. And a lot of times I'm doing those 2 things, running complex software for clients on a call. Decision criteria are forecasts that are important to resolving the problem. Example, Amanda decides that memory and storage capabilities and display are the highest priority for her. If relevant criteria aren't equal important, the decision maker must weight the items in order to give them the correct priority in the decision. What's most important? And we can just skip this. This is just another, we saw this already. List viable alternatives. And again, we already went through this. And what it's doing here is it's ranking. You might actually do this if you're making a decision, or you might just do it in your head. But this is what it looks like if you were to write it out. Like, who has the best battery life? Who has, the best storage, right? Choose an alternative, just skipping ahead, evaluate the alternatives, who has the best battery life going on. We already talked about that. Then put the decision into action. Which laptop are you going to buy? And then you evaluate the result or outcome of that decision. If it didn't go right, what went wrong? The firm I work for 9 months ago wasted a ton of money trying to switch the investment software that we use. We were going to switch from FactSet to Reuters to save like 50 grand a year. So, which sounds like a lot of money, but to save the 50 grand a year, about 10 people who were 60 years old needed to be retrained on software. And anyone who's worked with a bunch of people who are 60 years old who need to be trained in software, you realize pretty quickly that's almost an impossible task. So they ended up, after switching the software, they ended up switching it back because basically the older people refused to learn it. Right? You're making a decision based on cost, but you're not making the decision based on what reality is, what practical problems you run into, right? Decisions managers may make planning and organizing. We talked about these last chapter, but what are organizations' long-term objectives? What strategies will best achieve those objectives? What should the organization's short-term objectives be? How difficult should the individual's goals be? And I won't read through all these. You guys can see them. Same thing with leading and controlling, the 4 functions of management that we talked about last chapter. When it comes to controlling, you have to ask what activities need to be controlled. If you're the manager of McDonald's, it might be like making sure the right amount of burger buns are there, right? You have the cheese. I was actually reading a really interesting article. So first, I'll tell you, I went to McDonald's on Saturday after going apple picking, and they were sold out of the quarter pounder with cheese. I have never been to a McDonald's that was sold out of a burger before. And it was sold out of the burgers because of their partnership with Travis Scott, which I thought was like super interesting that his promotion led to quarter pounder with cheeses, not like a revolutionary new burger, like caused it to sell out, right? And then now McDonald's has other problems I was reading about this week, is that they're actually not only they fixed the problem with the shortage of burgers, but now they have like an onion shortage, right? And the problem with being a franchise like McDonald's is that you can't just go to the supermarket and buy onions. You have to buy the McDonald's onions as a franchise owner. So their supply chains were stressed, right? Rationality, rational decision making, choices that are logical and consistent, but we're not logical and consistent. All the choices we make are not like to maximize value, right? And there's a lot of assumptions that we're rational, right? Which is a big assumption. And, on average, we're probably rational, but like any individual at any given time is probably irrational, right? Decision maker would have a clear, specific goal and be aware of all alternatives. And a lot of times, and this is probably a key word coming up, it's called satisfice. It's like satisfaction and sacrifice combined to become one word. And that's like, when you go to the Cheesecake Factory, you don't ask the waitress about every single item on the menu. You choose like 2 or 3 and you say like, which one should I get? Or you just choose the one that you've had before because it's like good enough to solve the problem. And I can tell you, satisfied, sneak peek. Bounded rationality goes back to that cheesecake menu problem. Like, we're rational, but we're not perfectly rational because like we have a limit to the amount of information that we'll actually absorb. So that's the limits to our rationality. We don't decide among infinite choices. We decide among a handful of choices, right? Again, going back like the Cheesecake Factory, we're not going to look at every item on the menu. We'll be like, I feel like chicken. Look at these 3 dishes. Which one should I pick? And if you're me at the Cheesecake Factory, you just fill yourself up on that brown bread because it's so delicious. Escalation of commitment, an increased commitment to a previous decision despite evidence it may have been wrong. I mean, wow, we've all encountered that, I'm sure. Someone who doubles down on a wrong decision because they don't want to be wrong. Very common problem with management. Like the manager who wants to be right, might do that. Intuitive decision making, making decisions on the basis of experience, feelings, and accumulated judgment. Sometimes intuition can be valuable because your intuition is basically like training your brain off past biases and experiences and stereotypes, right? And like that, I have an intuition, and like when we're in a physical classroom, my intuition is everybody who sits in the back is going to be late with their homework. And guess what? I'm usually right. I have a high percentage of being right because what am I basing my judgment off of? Like past experience. And the past might not be exactly like the future, but it will rhyme. So this is just breaking down intuition, right? So subconscious, values or ethical based, experience based, affect initiated decisions. So like the managers make decisions based on feelings and emotion, like whether you like someone or not, right? Cognitive based decisions, managers make decisions based on the skills and knowledge and training. Evidence-based management is the systematic use of the best available evidence to improve management practice. So you're trying to look for new innovative approaches. So one thing that I've noticed is the employee review. There's been a shift in how employee reviews have been done in the last few years. And the new way, the old way is like your boss writes your review. The new way is your boss still writes your review, but there's more peer reviews, meaning not just reviews from your boss, but reviews from people under you and alongside you, right? And that's supposed to be better representative of maybe how good you are at your job. Because if you're great to your boss, but you treat all your kind of subordinates like crap, I mean, that should be part of your survey, right? If you're difficult to work with, I'd want to know. 2 types of problems: structured problems that are straightforward and easy to solve. Like, how much inventory should we get? Well, that's easy. You look at what you've done in the past, replicate it for the future. Program decisions are repetitive decisions that can be handled by a routine approach. Again, I probably used the wrong, that's probably a better example of inventory reordering. Structured problems are maybe like setting a schedule. Types of program decisions: procedure, a series of sequential steps used to respond. A rule, and explicit statements that tells managers what can and cannot be done. And then a policy is a guideline for making decisions. Yeah. Unstructured problems are problems that are new or unusual, for which information is ambiguous or incomplete. Coronavirus, right? Non-program decisions are unique and non-reoccurring and involve custom-made solutions. So program decisions are usually handled by lower management. It doesn't take a lot of creativity and freedom to kind of do the inventory. But non-program decisions are more that are ambiguous and require more creativity, tend to be done more with higher level management. Excuse me. Decision-making conditions, like how certain are you on the outcome, right? So, a marketing tool I use at work, I have 2 years of data that say for every $1 we invest in this marketing program, we get $2 of annual reoccurring revenue. Like, I have 2 years of data. I'm like fairly certain those are the results. Risk, situation in which the decision maker is able to estimate the likelihood of certain outcomes. And then uncertainty, a situation in which the decision maker has neither certainty nor probability of the estimates available. Managers can use historical data or secondary information to assign probabilities. So what happened in the past? Will it be like the future? Is there any secondary information? There was a story, and this is not necessarily related to business, but that vaping, we might have even talked about this in class, that like vaping is way down and like how great that is. But like vaping isn't down because kids stopped being rebellious. Why is vaping down? Because people are home. Like, they didn't solve the vaping or smoking crisis. It's just a result of the secondary data, meaning like if you're with your mom and dad all day, teenage smoking is going to go down because they're going to be with you 24/7. Expected value. So if this is like a snowplow company, I'm guessing, the more snow, the more money they make. And what are the probabilities of more snow? Well, it's light, right? What are the probabilities of not much snow? That's also low. So, you try to estimate what your revenue might be based on, a probability weighted set of outcomes. This can give you a better, what you might view as average. So I'm just skipping this stuff right here. Heuristics are rules of thumb. That means like, one heuristic that's common in the stock market is to sell your stocks in May because the market usually doesn't do well over the summer. That's not always true. It's true sometimes. Why is it true? Well, there's less trading activity in the summer, so the market is less liquid, which can cause like larger price movements when less people are around. But some people might say, hey, it's May, let's like sell some stocks because that's worked before. However, there's a lot of errors and biases, right? There have been plenty of times where if you've sold in the summertime, the market's done well and you missed out. There are a bunch of biases: overconfidence, immediate gratification, anchoring. Anchoring is an interesting one, meaning you make a decision and you don't want to move from it. Selective perception. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is like, let's say I was a Trump supporter and I only read news that agreed with my opinion. Or I was a Biden supporter and I only read news that was favorable to Biden, right? Like I have a confirmation bias. You know, here's the framing bias. It's like how you frame an argument, right? And I'm going to I'll just be fun, and I'm just going to say, Karina, how often do you beat up your boyfriend? That's framing bias. She doesn't have to answer that because I was just goofing around. But by asking that question in a certain way, I've already positioned her as someone who beats up her boyfriend. I'm just asking, like, how often and when was the last time, right? So, that's framing bias, right? It's the way you frame a certain question to make, like, you'll see, like, in an attorney movie, they'll do that, like, just to kind of make someone look a certain way. Availability bias. Do you have access to this information? Like, is the right answer available to you? Representation bias. Does this look like similar to something you've seen before? So you put it in the same category? And a funny example, but like, hey, if you were an alien, you're like, what does a dog look like? It has a tail, 4 legs, eyes, ears, and nose, right? But you could also say the same thing about a cat. So like to an alien, you'd be like, hey, here's another dog. And you're like, no, man, that's a cat, right? Because it has similar characteristics. Randomness, I don't need to explain that. Sunk cost is another one, meaning like you already invested bad money into something, so you continue to invest bad money into that. Like if you paid $3,000 for a car and you got in an accident and it cost $2,500, I'd tell you just to buy a new car, right? Because that's a sunk cost, right? Don't spend $2,500 fixing a $3,000 car. It's not worth it. Hindsight bias is kind of like the I told you so bias. You look back and you'd be like, oh, of course. How didn't I know that? Right? Of course I knew that. So we are going to have to skip all over these slides because I've already read you these definitions. There's all these in the decision-making process. You have all these biases baked in: being rational, bounded rationality, intuition, right? All these things are going to impact, where you're going to fall into a certain, outcome. What about risk? Like someone who is more inclined to take risk might make riskier business decisions. That might work, and they also might not. The opposite can be true, where someone is like very risk averse, and that could work out, or it could not, by like being too afraid to try something new. So there's no right bias, right? There's like, it's like a yin and a yang. Like if you have this one bias, you should look for things to offset it. And we won't talk about it as much, but like confirmation bias is a great one. So one thing I try to do, I'm just getting to the right slide, is I try to seek out information that disagrees with me in order to overcome my confirmation bias. So with investing, if I like a stock and I think it's a buy, I'm going to try to find someone in the market that thinks it's a sell and read their opinion. Because I want to know what someone who's against my idea, what their criticism is. And that might make me change my opinion, or it might make me say, well, I know more than this person. And that may or may not be true. Also you have to understand cultural differences in making decisions, create standards for good decision making, know when it's time to move on, have an effective process, and then develop your ability to think clearly. Like I mentioned, I'm going to always seek out contrarian information to my view just to kind of stress test my ideas. Good decision makers focus on what's important, logical, consistent. They acknowledge subjective and analytical thinking, require as much information as needed. They don't overanalyze. They don't collect too much information. One gentleman I work with is like focuses way too much on data, where you're spending way too much time collecting data and then not enough time on the output, right? Design thinking, that's an approach to management problems as designers approach design problems. So you're trying to figure out like a way to incentivize people. So if you're trying to sell a certain product, is there a way you can incentivize your employees to like move the product that you want moved? How do you, if you're at a restaurant and you want the customers to have a bigger bill, then like your waiters and waitresses should like actively promote the drink menu. Easiest way to raise the bill, right? So what do? Maybe you have a contest. Hey, whoever sells the most cocktails tonight will get like a $50 gift card somewhere, right? And the $50 gift card will be nothing compared to you doubling your beverage sales, right? That's a low cost for increasing your beverage sales, and it'd be like win-win because, well, you say win-win, you'll probably have a lot of drunk people, but besides that, from a business perspective, you will have accomplished your goals. Big data, it's looking at, exactly what it sounds like. A lot of information is out there, especially about companies, products, what people like, where they live. Do people in certain zip codes spend more than others on different products? If you're looking to build a new store, some stores ask like, hey, can we get your zip code when you purchase something? They want to know where you're coming from. So that way, if they're designing marketing or a new location, they know where their money's coming from. And they might build a store to like fill in a gap somewhere. And these are the review slides. So we're done with those. And guys, I feel like the class felt longer today, but we're done for today. How's that sound? Quick question on the homework. Let me answer this. There's a deadline each week, or it can be done any day. So there's deadlines set up on the Moodle page. I don't have it set up, but I believe the first paper was due today. And just because we have new people coming into the class and dropping out, that first week's always a challenge. I don't penalize late work the first week or so of class. So if you're new and you haven't done anything yet, you have a week to get it done. Because after next Thursday, late work is late work, right? But until next Thursday, you don't have to ask my permission to do something late. After that, though, I will mark late work accordingly. Does that sound good?
I didn't understand the time when it said 12 a.m. I thought 12.
If you want, you have until midnight. I'm not like cute with the times, but you can do whatever you want. Like if you want to turn it in at 11:59, you can.
Quick question, Professor.
Yes.
Do we need the textbook to do the homework?
So far, no.
Okay.
But I don't want to be in a position where I tell you you don't need the textbook. The textbook's a requirement of the course. The textbook will be helpful in the slides and the reading that you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'll leave it, right?
Okay.
Hey, I found a link to the free version of the book you're using, but version 11.
I think you should share that in the chat room with the group.
Yes, please.
Actually, I think I have it up right now.
Oh, send that our way.
Hold on.
You know what? The original one is very, very expensive.
Yes, I understand.
How much is the original one?
Over $300.
Like 130 or something like that.
130 is like a loose one. The loose
I think
all the slides.
Nadina, just to answer that for you, it's whatever day I set up, right? So I don't want to commit to 15 weeks of when I'm going to have the homework due, because I could have a longer assignment or a shorter assignment. I could adjust the date, but the date is always stated on the homework assignment. So likely I'm going to have it due, either Wednesday night or Thursday. I don't really like having it due after class, but I just want you to do the homework, really. So kind of do it before around the deadline. If you turn in 5 minutes late, I'm not going to mark it late. If you turn in 2 hours late, don't email me asking me forgiveness. You don't need it. I'm just going to give you credit for it. Your other teachers might not do that, but I'm not going to split hairs.
Professor,
Yes?
I have a question. So next week, do we have to, like this week, we have a newspaper reading and represents our ideas newspaper next week?
So we'll do that once a week, right? Did I say we're going to do that? Did I say we're going to split the class, or did I say we're going to do that every day? I forget.
Do what again?
With the articles. Did I say everyone's going to do that every day? Are we going to do that every day?
I said you're just going to get to as many as you can, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, so you should bring one for every class. Likely what I'll switch to doing, because I felt like it might have, I felt like we used a good amount of class time today. So today kind of felt perfect. We spent a good amount of time on articles, and then we spent the other half on the slides. So I like the flow. I did feel like towards the end I wanted to like hurry up and get done. No offense to AJ, but just sometimes it gets like it drags on a little bit. So yeah, bring articles to every class.
So, Professor, last time you mentioned there are several websites without that political opinion, and could you send email, because I didn't record the website, the post name. I just read from the Washington Post like that.
Yeah, the Washington Post is fine, but it's like it's a lot of kind of like opinions and like less business stuff. So I just sent.
Recommended, right?
What's that?
Barron was one of the ones you recommended.
I feel like there's a lot of interference. The articles I recommended, I think Barron's is the best. I think that, and I just sent in the chat for the class, I sent another link in the chat that you should click on if you want access to the student subscription to Barron's, which is like 15 weeks for $15.
Okay.
I was also able to find a subscription to the Wall Street Journal for $4 each month for students. So
yes, I think they both include Barron's. I think it includes the Wall Street Journal and Barron's as the same company.
I
was
not able to get Barron's through that, but I maybe have to look into it.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I found it. 52 for 52 weeks.
Yeah, but you don't need that one. You just need the student one. But you don't even need this. If you're asking me what I would tell someone to do, I would say spend $15 to get the high quality thing because it will save you a bunch of time looking. You can pretty much open up Barron's and every article is applicable to this class. Or you can go on like Boston.com or the Washington Post and like struggle to find a good article, right?
Entrepreneur is a good one. Entrepreneur.com.
I mean, it is. But like, people, I don't, this goes back to satisfice and bounded rationality, right? If I give people 10 choices, everyone's going to be like, oh, I don't know which one to pick. But if I give you 2, then I know you execute on it, right? So I don't read Entrepreneur Magazine. That doesn't apply to my work as much, but I'm sure it applies a ton to this class. So there's nothing wrong with going to a different source. It's just if you ask me what I think is the best source, I'll just give you my opinion. And my opinion isn't necessarily right either. It's what I think is the best. Doesn't mean there aren't other good sources out there. Anything else?
I put the link up on the chat for the textbook.
Yep, and I put the link up for Barron's as well. So if anyone needs anything from me, just reach out. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys on Tuesday. Wait.
Thursday.
No, Thursday. Sorry, I get confused about my classes. Haha. I'll see you guys next Thursday.
All right, thank you.
I think Asia.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice night.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
AJ, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think I have a problem in your link. I couldn't access it.
I clicked on it, it goes to it. You might need to just put an email or something. Wait, you can't get to the link when you get on it?
Like when I try to copy paste the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't open it too.
Just click on the link. You can click on it.
I click on it.
It
Yeah.
says fail to open page.
Yeah, like same. Are you using Mac?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm using Mac, but like it's
click
not
on the link and then I go to my web browser. It opened up. It was already open in my Firefox.
Can you?
Oh, you have to use Firefox, okay? Because I
don't know if it has to be Firefox, but because the book is actually on that link, so you would like to save the link on your phone or something. So anytime you need the book, you go to that website.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, like I just clicked on it. It opens up in Firefox, but it should open up in whatever browser you have.
Oh, okay.
Because I clicked it a couple times and nothing happened, but then when I opened Firefox, it had opened up like 5 times.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. See you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.